Hi, I'm Old Norse Specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford. Today, I'm back to conclude my three-part series summarizing and very lightly commenting on the Saga of Gisli Sursson, Gisla Saga Surssonar. Now, this recap has not exactly followed the sequence of events as they are told in the saga because certain things are happening at about the same time. But this third part of the recap begins roughly with chapter 28. Now, you may recall when we left him, Gisli had been hidden by a couple of kind farmers after his daring escape from Ingjald's island. Meanwhile, we find out that the two young, the teenage boys who had killed his brother Thorkel were in fact Berg and Helgi, the sons of Vestein, Gisli's best friend, and his brother-in-law, the brother of his wife, Audr. Now these two go to their Aunt Audr's place asking her for shelter as they would expect her to give them, being that she's their aunt and that they just avenged her own brother. But she only gives them a little bit of food and then shows them away, which is a little bit scandalous in terms of Norse hospitality until you realize that something she knows that the boys don't know is that Gisli is staying with her at the time, and that Gisli, even though these two boys avenged his best friend, they did it by killing his brother, and Gisli honors the ironclad saga code of vengeance for one's family, and he wants to kill these boys now. So the boys leave, and after a time, Audr has another visitor, Oyolfr, one of the men hired by Gisli's other brother-in-law, Borkr, to track him down. Oyolfr comes to Audr in his pursuit of Gisli and tries to bribe her into giving up Gisli's location. He offers her 300 pieces of silver, the same he says as he's being paid to hunt down Gisli, as well as offering to marry her off to a better or a man of better social status than this outlaw Gisli that she's stuck with right now. Well, she says, "Let me count your money," and he pours it out and she counts through the different coins and she says, "So you agree that since you've given me this money, that it's mine to do with as I wish?" He says, "Of course," so she puts it all back into the bag, winds it up, and smashes him in the face with it, making him bleed from the nose. Now, Oyolfr is shocked and hurt, incredibly embarrassed at being harmed by a woman, so he tells his men to kill her, but he is scolded by his man Hallvardr, who says what a shame it would be to kill a woman, and so he leaves without this attack being avenged, and with Audr still holding on to the money that he wanted to give in exchange for getting Gisli's location. Meanwhile, Hallvardr is given a nice golden ring by Audr in exchange for his decency. Now, it has been about 7 years since Gisli was outlawed, and you may recall that Gisli has dreams about a good dream woman and a bad dream woman, and among the dreams that he was shown by them were 7 fires, which represented the 7 years that he would spend as an outlaw. So he knows that his time as an outlaw is just about over, and his dreams are getting worse. He sees the bad dream woman more, she's pouring blood on him and things like that. He also has dreams about the haunting cries of loons, but in this case, giant loons, who stand near his house, and there's also blood on the house at the same time, so fearsome dreams. And now Gisli's remaining most of the time at his wife Audr's house, right? He's sort of given up on the idea that he's going to be able to get away now that 7 years have passed. One night, he's just having such bad dreams that he can't sleep, and he decides to see if he can go out of the house back to one of his old hideout places and see if he can get any sleep out there. So he leaves the house, and as he goes, he carries a stick that he carves runes into, and he lets the shavings from the stick fall into the frozen dew around him. Now, this is pretty striking if you consider that the Norns, the 3 women who determine fate in Norse myth, Urður, Verdandi, and Skuld, are said in Völuspá to skera og skidi, to carve on planks of wood. So he may be, in a sense, accepting his fate by imitating the action taken by the beings who determine fate. Anyway, Audr, as well as their foster daughter Guðríður, wake up and they follow Gisli's track in the frozen dew, just as Oilver is arriving at Audr's farmhouse, following up on a tip that Gisli is there, and he also follows the track. So Gisli's got his axe, a sword, and a shield. He, together with his wife and his foster daughter, go to the top of a ridge and prepare to defend themselves against Oilver and his party of men. These men attack Gisli. Helgi, of course, the subcontractor, Helgi the spy, advances on Gisli with an axe in hand. Gisli cuts him in half with his sword. Meanwhile, Oilver comes up the back way, but Audr beats him with a stick, so he's been hit by her twice, which causes Gisli to comment that he knew already that he was married to a good woman, but he had never realized till now just how good of a woman he was married to, which is kind of fun. Gisli kills 2 more men, with the women holding up the rear, preventing the party from coming up behind Gisli. But eventually, at Oilf's urging, they all come at him at once, and Gisli gets his guts cut out by somebody's spear. Now Gisli is undeterred. He has a great drengr end here. He's going to take a cord, and he's going to tie his guts back into his abdominal cavity, and he's going to speak this poem. The beautiful woman, jewel of my home who cheers me, will proudly hear of her brave husband. I think it's well, though the sharp blades of swords bite me. My father gave his son this toughness. Of course, that's my translation. You know, you look at this and you say, this has to be a poem that he had already practiced, right, for the occasion of dying. There's nothing particularly specific here about dying in this context, and he acts as if this is something his wife is going to hear about from somebody else rather than something that she's witnessing. So I like to think that this is pretty clearly something Gisli had just been saving up for the moment that he knew he was about to die. You know, I've talked about Old Norse death poems in the past, and in a video I'll link in a card in the top right. You know, it often does seem they would have to be something that you would have had to premeditate upon and commit to memory, as when you actually think you're going to die, you usually don't have time to say anything this cool. I would know, as the major time that I thought I was about to die, I said nothing near this cool. Anyway, he says his cool poem. He's got his guts tied back into his abdominal cavity. He takes his sword pointed down, and he leaps off the ridge, and he falls with the sword into the head of one more man, one of Oilver's own cousins, killing him as he falls to his own death. A truly, truly drengr ending. Now Oilver's going to take Gisli's sword, go to Borkr, and report this news. Borkr is going to throw a feast to celebrate Oilver's defeat of Gisli, and he's going to ask his wife, Thordis, Gisli's sister, to host. Now Thordis says, do I have to host my own brother's killer? And Borkr says, well, remember how much you loved my brother, because of course, if you don't remember how this started, Thordis was married to Thorgrimr, Borkr's brother, but Gisli killed Thorgrimr to avenge Vestane after Thorkill probably killed him because Gisli needed to kill somebody and wasn't going to kill his own brother. Go back and watch the previous installments of this if this isn't familiar. Alright, so now Thordis, of course, is conflicted because she's gotten her first husband avenged, but he was avenged on her husband, so what is she going to do? Well, during the feast, she's going to come around to the table where Borkr and Eolver are sitting, and she's going to act like she drops a tray. She then reaches under the table to grab her own brother's sword out of the sheath that Oilver is wearing it in, draw it out, and try to stab him, but she only stabs him in the groin. She doesn't manage to kill him. So then Borkr says, well, you can have self-judgment, which means you determine how much I owe you for the injury that my wife did to you. And Oilver says, well, you owe me as much as if she had killed me, at which point Thordis names witnesses and declares herself divorced from Borkr. And with that, I think that the story, in terms of its human interest, substantially comes to an end, with Thordis' conflict having mirrored her own brother Gisli's. Thordis will, by the way, go on to farm on her own. She'll start her own farm. And her son, with her first husband, is Snorri Goði Thorgrimsson, who has a role in many other sagas, including Njol's saga. Audr and Bergen Helgi will go to the mainland, and Audr will die as a Christian somewhat later. But as I said, I think that the substantial human interest of the story ends with Thordis. Well, I hope that review of Gisli's saga was interesting or informative, whether you knew the saga already or had never even heard of it. And I hope that if you enjoy my stories from the medieval Norse, that you'll read my actual published translations of stories from the medieval Norse. I've translated the Poetic Edda, the main source of Norse myth, as well as the Saga of the Volsungs with the Saga of Ragnar Lothbrok, its medieval fanfic sequel. And in fall of 2019, my Wanderer's Havamal will be released by Hackett Publishing Company, the publisher of the last two books. The Wanderer's Havamal will have not only the Old Norse text of Havamal, but also my thorough commentary on it, as well as my two English translations of Havamal, the regular one and the Cowboy Havamal, and some additional texts related to Odin that haven't been published before. Well, for now, from beautiful Wyoming, please know that I am wishing you all the best.